Make sure you check out my Instagram at Joe the Insomniak too, and the podcast in the description below. Now, when I was 16, I grew up near Spooner, Wisconsin. Me and a friend went to my godfather's cabin for a boys' weekend. So that's me, him, my dad, godfather, his two boys, and two exchange students. And my godfather hosted. Now my friend and I were stoners. We went for a walk one day late down the main road and then down to an old logger's cabin. We smoked some weed and then the sun set fast and it's dark. I mean really dark. We had a tough time staying on the loggers road but did our very best to make our way back to the main road. About halfway back, I get the feeling like something's following us. After asking my buddy if he felt creeped out, I said, I think something followed us. We were so scared, we were holding hands as we're walking back. I mean, imagine two 16-year-old guys doing this. We're really that scared. And we're literally facing backwards while one faces forwards. We eventually could see the road and started hustling a little. As soon as we got to the road, my God, my father's truck pulled up with him and my dad yelling, Jesus Christ! We've been worried about you, get in. Now we refused to go and just jump in the back. My buddy had a panic attack when we're back to the cabin. After telling my godfather and dad what happened, we said that nobody's allowed to go outside on their own anymore after dark. Now apparently after we left late in the afternoon, his neighbour walked over and told him that they'd actually spotted a massive cougar near the cabin very close to the time that we arrived. So that thing was definitely out there stalking us, and if it went for us, I wouldn't have even been typing this story today. I'm of Navajo descent. I'm 1/4. My grandfather is pure. This was quite a while ago, but every summer, we used to go and stay at my uncle's house. He has 3 floors and the basement was pretty much a living room and had a slope that went above ground level. So it was only half underground. It had a window and everything. So for some odd reason, they leave these huge windows open at night. I've seen skinwalkers snooping around there pretty often, and mainly as distant silhouettes over 6 feet tall. So I knew exactly what to expect when you voluntarily leave a large window open, easily big enough for a person to climb through. Let's go off a bunny trail real quick. The situation already made me uncomfortable because of the stories about when we're babies. My family was staying in my now's trailer, and she had those individual square locks, and they woke up in the early dark hours of the next morning to find that every single lock was on the floor, the doors wide open, and my brother was missing a lock of hair. My now had to do a ritual prayer or something to try and save him. It worked though, and he grew up successfully, and followed his dreams. Now back to the story. So we're all getting ready for bed. My grandma's sleeping on the couch. My brother and his friend are sleeping on the other couch. Me and my auntie were sleeping on a mattress behind the couch and my grandma's on. Everyone else went camping outside to skinwalker hunt. Everyone got settled and went to bed, and my auntie stole my pillow. It gets to around 1 or so, and I wake up feeling incredibly uneasy. I sat up and look around. Everything appears to be normal, and nothing was in the windows but the distant flashing lights it is seen oh so often, and I managed to get back to sleep. So here it happens, 4 AM. I roll on my left side to see my aunt sleeping peacefully, despite having rolled off the mattress. Her hair spread all across the floor, and she's completely wrapped up cozily. Everything normal, until I realise that my aunt is on the right side of my bed. And this is not my aunt. This long black hair was not hers, and her knee that was exposed was some kind of joint. Really crazy. You know how if you're greatly afraid or injured, you basically become incapacitated with fear or adrenaline? I'm filled with adrenaline. I reached my arm and grabbed the couch and flipped it over to the other side. I wake up my grandma in doing so I told her wake up, but to stay quiet. And it began to move around the couch and back out the window. It was so odd. I've never seen anything like it. The way it moved was too smooth and unnatural. It was horrifying. It was in 1971. I was in my late 20s, and then I was staying in Rose Hill, not yet married and staying at my folks. One day, my dad came home with a South African couple. He met them while going back home, and they're tourists visiting, and they have their bags, tents and sleeping bags. Mauritius was still safe in that period, but independence was given by Great Britain in 1968, and a civil war had just come to an end a few months before. The two communities had fought for political reasons. Anyway, my dad invited them to come sleep over for a few days. I remember the guy had a big blonde beard. He was very kind. His wife was as well, but I forget her face. We decided to organise camping during a week on the coast, in a place called Flink and Flack. This place is now pretty developed, but at the time, it was just wild with very few houses. We ended up leaving to go there on a Saturday morning. We found a very nice place to put a tent up and organise the day. The South African man and his wife were very good swimmers and drivers. We spent a lot of time in the sea, catching fish, crabs and lobsters, which are getting scarce now. We all enjoyed the day. The sunset's beautiful. It was warm, and we're in the summer and everything was perfect. When the night came, we prepared a nice barbecue with chicken, beef and pork and a few shrimps. The night was starry. My dad was happy and drunk, and the couple were obviously having a great time. Since we're not fluent in English, communication's a bit hard, but we can understand generally what's happening. It's great fun to see my dad trying to have a conversation with them with very limited knowledge of English. Anyway, it must have been around 9 PM. We're all seated on the beach, watching the ocean as well as the starry sky by the campfire. It's so beautiful. Then we started to hear a complaint. We could not determine the origin of the sound, but it sounded like a woman was wailing. It was faint but clear at the same time, and it's in the same place, which was wild and remote. The wailing was not constant, but we could hear it from time to time. We just thought it was a kind of animal or something. So we're seated on the beach facing the ocean when suddenly we noticed someone coming out from the sea on our left about 40 meters away. It was a woman with a long white dress just walking from the sea to the beach. We can't see her face, but she had long hair. The only lights that are there are the stars in our bonfire. She silently walked straight and disappeared from our view in the vegetation. We found this very odd. I knew it was not normal, but didn't know what the others were thinking. My dad's very drunk and watches with a smile on his face. I think he's kind of lost. We all look at each other and did not know what to think. I tried to check if there was a house nearby, but there literally isn't one. I just stood up and walked towards the sea and looked on my left to see where she went. There was only green bushes and trees. There were no lights or constructions around. Now I was scared because I realised that this must have been a ghost. I walked back to the bonfire and sat around and tell everyone that I don't find a house. We stopped talking and everyone stays alert. We could hear these little noises. We can now hear a crackling. It's a really weird type sound, like an animal or someone trying to walk on dry leaves. but much heavier. Then suddenly, loud flapping sounds by a tree. It looks like a large bird, pigeons or bats flying away. My mum told me quietly that she felt as though something was deeply wrong here. The couple were looking around with their glass in their hands, and then suddenly, something heavy fell in front of us about 6 meters away. I stood up to see what it was, but I don't find anything. Nothing's around, despite the fact that the night is clear and sweet. The atmosphere's changed. Apart from my father, who's in a trip because he's drunk, we're all scared. The couple walked between them, and I could not understand. They seemed quite concerned about the situation. I did not know what we could do. Could we stay there or maybe go to sleep somewhere else? Crazy. Then in the middle of the night, we hear this bone-chilling scream like a woman being attacked. It seems so close to us. We're on our feet with eyes about to pop out of their sockets. My heart's pounding so loud that I thought the others could literally hear it. The couple started to pick up their stuff and my dad followed them. My mum and I packed up everything as quickly as possible, and some coconuts fell and rolled on our camp as though someone threw them. We're now scared to death. We heard running on the beach, then in the woods, but we can't see anything. We quickly put stuff in the car, and it was not easy because we have a big car and a lot of stuff. We have to pile things up. The worst was the barbecue. It was hot and dirty and we didn't want to leave it, and I burnt myself trying to put it away. While we're packing away, things happened around us. The screams seemed to originate from different places and there's lots of sounds going on. We all get in the car, practically one on top of the other, with stuff all around us. I take the wheel because my dad's drunk. As we move, I get a shock. The woman dressed in white is standing by the little lane looking at us, and it's bone chilling. I actually stopped the car not knowing what to do. I was too scared to move closer, but it's the only way out. We waited a few minutes as she was standing there staring at us. I can actually hear my mum started praying now, and the South African couple mumbling something. Then suddenly, we hear a bang like something hit the car. We turn to see. The atmosphere is sobering up very quickly for my dad. He's now swearing. We didn't see anything behind us, but when we look forward, we can't see the woman anymore. But that's the scariest thing that happened. She was now next to my door looking. I can't describe the fear that I felt. I released a scream and immediately stomped on the gas, and unfortunately the car stalled. I quickly put it into gear again. I was too scared to drive properly at first. I floor it out of there and don't even bother looking back. None of us knew what we had just seen and experienced. Fortunately, Rose Hill is not far from Flinkenclack, but we reached the town, and the car is broken down now. The fan belt of the car is broken and the engine stopped from overheating. Now, we're in the 70s, so there's no cell phones or anything. The couple and my mum walk home, which isn't far by, and my dad and I stay at the car. At home, my mum phones a friend of my dad who wasn't staying far away to tow the car. When we finally reach home at around 11:30 PM, I'm completely exhausted. My dad's friend who had helped us was invited to have coffee, and we tell him what happened. He then says that the Flinkenclack was haunted and several people have encountered the woman too, and that we're lucky really, because there's been some people that have went missing there walking along the beach and never been found again. Now apparently, a woman lost her baby while pregnant there. She is a few weeks away from delivery, but after seeing the ghost, she had pain in her tummy and lost a child. These events would not always happen, but would take place randomly. The South African couple stayed for 2 more days and left, and we never heard from them again afterwards. About 3 years ago, I went hiking in the Atlas Mountains of Morocco. Since I didn't speak Arabic and my phone didn't receive data in Morocco, I decided to hire a guide. He suggested that we hike the Jebel Yagor. It was a small mountain, but I was told that it had an excellent view. About a quarter of the journey up the mountain. Now I suddenly couldn't hear anything. I thought I was about to pass out and sat down quickly. I soon realised that my vision is perfect, and I began to stand back up. I take a step forward, but I couldn't hear my foot hit the rocky ground beneath it. I took another step forward, and then I once again could hear everything. I heard my guide call out to me asking if I'm okay. I could hear the wind again, and I could hear the voices of other people up the mountain. I turned around and stepped back from where I was standing a moment prior, and hear nothing. I even decided to pick up a small rock and threw it downwards, but still hear nothing. I eventually stepped forward again and can hear my guide calling me to come. I asked him to stand where I was a moment ago. He looked at me weird, but the second he stood there, his eyes get wide. He took 2 steps forward and very quickly said what happened. I told him I hoped he'd have an idea. He seems really scared, even more so than me, and suggests we keep going. On the way up the mountain, we talk about how weird the experience was, and I decide to try and find the same spot on the way down. Once we reach the top and hike back down, I tried standing in the same position as earlier, in the same spot. The problem is that the spot looks completely different from where it was before, and I'm not sure if it was there. I spent about 30 minutes looking for the spot, but I can't find it. I know it's a massive long shot, but has anyone ever experienced anything on this mountain? When I was about 26 years old, this event happened, about 4 years ago. A friend and I decided to go on a 2-week road trip from Kansas through Colorado, Utah, and all down the west coast. We camped the whole way and had an incredible time, other than occasionally having trouble finding campsites. One day, after a fun, glutinous night in Portland, we decided to camp on Mount Hood. It was the middle of summer, so we expected to see others there, even though it's a weekday. We had to drive pretty far up the mountain in search of a campsite, because all the ones towards the bottom were closed, due to the fallen trees or trees that would be falling if a breeze came through. Not really sure what that was about, but it was a beautiful mountain with nature all around us. We were excited to be there. We saw a couple of old men fishing on the way up, and one family camping. They appeared to be Native American, and there's about 5 of them. We drove up quite a way before we find a nice private camping spot and set up for the night. We walk around, gathering wood, talking about the night in Portland and setting up the tent. The time comes for us to go to bed, and my friend Lucy has fallen asleep. I'm still laying there trying to fall asleep when I hear footsteps and leaves crunching. This puts me on high alert, since there weren't many people camping and none by us. I lay there with my heart racing and listen. I begin to hear voices and try and nudge my friend awake, but she's pretty much passed out and not waking. I continue to listen and make out words. It's our voices having the exact conversation that we had around the campfire, not even an hour before. It didn't last long before the silence returned. It's the craziest thing that's ever happened in my life.